Hey everybody, it's Mr. Mott. What I want to do is go over our TLC or Thin Layer Chromatography Lab and sort of the idea behind it and then how to do it. So the first thing is the problem that we're going to try to solve is that we've got a few of these unknown mixtures that have a few different either dyes or stains in them. And we actually have 3 of these. And so what our job is going to be is to try to figure out what dyes we have in here using the idea about chromatography, that separation technique. Instead of using paper in this case, we're going to use this chromatography slide here. And so it's plastic on one side and it has this chromatography material on the other. And then I'm not sure if you can see, there we go. I drew a line in pencil on the bottom, and this is where we're going to put spots of our unknowns. As in anything in science, whenever you have an unknown, you need to compare it to something that you know. So what we know in this case is that in these unknowns that we have, the mixtures of dyes could be one of 5 different dyes or stains that we have. And so what we have is that we have different dyes or stains, and then what we're going to do is we're going to use these to compare to our unknown. We've got ES and Y solution, which is we're going to label as A on our paper or on our chromatography slide. B is going to be fast green. C is going to be fluorescein. D is going to be methylene blue. This is all be in your paperwork, in your packet, things like that, and also in the Flynn lab. And then you've got, for E, is going to be safranin. And most of these, if not all, are going to be biological stains. So the first thing that we need to do is that we need to prepare the method in which we're going to add drops. So what we're going to do is that we're going to put drops along that pencil line on the bottom, and we need to make small drops. And so if we just use the dropper in the bottle, it wouldn't work for us. It would be too big, and when the mobile phase that we're using carries it up, it would spread out and everything would really overlap. So what we're going to do is make some droppers, and to do that we're going to be using a Bunsen burner and some melting point tubes. All right, so melting point tube has got an open end, which I'm showing on the right, but it also has a closed end. Now ideally we would actually be using a capillary tube, which I've got over here on the left. The difference being is that in a capillary tube both ends are open. The reason we're using these melting point tubes is because for some reason, maybe another chemistry teacher had ordered it, and we literally have like thousands of them. And so we're going to be using these. It's going to mean that we're going to do a little bit more work than we normally would, but it's going to be, we've got this resource and we're going to use it up. All right, so what I've got is my Bunsen burner lit. I've got a small flame with that's blue, nice and hot, with an inner cone there. So we want a small but hot flame for this. We got our melting point tubes. And what you're going to do, what you would do in lab, is that you would hold this on either end, and we're going to put it in the middle of the flame there. It's going to heat up really quickly, and then we're going to pull these straight out. All right, so hopefully I can do this without knocking over my iPad. Let's give it a try. Okay, so when we do this, the ends kind of look like this. What we'll end up doing after we do a number of these, is that we'll kind of put the ends in a little bit of paper towel and kind of break these off. What I'm holding in my left hand, though, this is the side that has the closed end, and this end we can't use, so we're going to dispose of that in a safety glass container to get rid of it. But that's what we would do. We can't use this for a dropper because without an open end, the drops really won't come out very well. So I'm going to do this for a number. I'll show you a couple more times here, and then we'll get to the dropping technique. All right, so what I've got is my spotters, and what I've started to do was break some of the tips off here. Again, you want the opening to be really small, and obviously since it's glass, we wouldn't want to just do that in our hands. So what I like to do is just put it under a little piece of paper and then just kind of hold that down, and you'll hear like a little break. And then we'll keep going and do that for the other ones that we have. And if it turns out when you go to use it that it didn't break off enough of the tip, then you just go back and you can try it again. I've made a few extras of these because sometimes the tips break off too big and you get too big of a spot. And that would mess up our experiment down the road, okay? Next, what we're going to do on this Petri dish that's labeled A, B, C, D, and question mark is that we're going to put drops of our known solutions and then our unknown on there. All right. So that's what we're going to do, and then we'll practice our spotting technique and obviously get this piece of paper away. All right, everybody, here we are ready to spot. So what I did on the Petri dishes here, or excuse me, these watch glasses, is that I put one drop of each of the known values that we're going to use to compare to our unknowns. And then on the watch glass to the right, I did, in the A spot, I did unknown number 1. In the B spot, I did unknown number 2. In the C spot, I did unknown number 3. So what we're going to do is take our spotters here that we made. We're going to see what happens. So when we put this into the dye, whoop, we have sucked up some of the dye here. And that's for A. I'm just going to set it on this piece of paper that I did so I can keep all of these straight. And we'll do that for each of these dyes. And what we'll do after this is that we'll make sure that each of these spotters is giving a good amount of the dye out without giving too much. If you were to put this into, put one of your spotters into the dye or the stain and nothing came up, that means that the tip is closed, and so you would want to try to break off a little bit more of that tip. That one just did a little. I think that could be too small, but we're going to give it a try. The next thing that you would want to do ahead of time, when you actually are spotting on your TLC film, what you would want to make sure is that you're not putting too much of the dye on. So when if I were to grab, let's grab A, so we go in order. If we were to grab this one and you just want to practice, like on a little piece there, practice putting down some of the dye. So I would probably say, let's see, maybe I'm just tapping it. These two would probably be an appropriate size. So we don't necessarily need to have a lot on there. We just want to have enough of the dye to see how things separate. All right. And so this gives you an opportunity to kind of practice, but also lets you know that if the spotter that you made is going to give out enough dye. So that one, this one here, I have to go a lot more up and down, and this was B, so I need to get more of that before I actually spot my plate there. So again, you're just practicing with these. And making sure you're not giving out too much of the liquid. And this is a good idea to practice this on just a spare piece of chromatography film. Like for letter E here, because this sucked up so much of the stain, I kind of wonder if this is going to give too big of a drop. So let's try it out. No, it's actually pretty good. For all these, you know, doing like a little tap and a little tap is better than just holding it down because it'll get really big. And so I would say that this one right here that I just did is too big. You'd want something maybe half that size. All right. Next, what we'll do is that we're going to spot our chromatography film here. And what I've done in pencil at the top is labeled these ABC. I've done the other ones as D and E. And then since I'm doing all the unknowns, I knew I was going to have another film, so I'm going to have the unknowns on another one. If you were just doing, for instance, like unknown number 1, where I've kind of scribbled it out here, if you were just doing one unknown as you would do in class, then you would just put whatever unknown you had, unknown number 1, 2, or 3, whichever your group was assigned. But again, since I'm doing all 3, I'm going to have I have a separate chromatography film here.